the injuries and the minutes we were just talking about, is this a cumulative effect of what we've seen based on what this team has had to endure with injuries and the minutes that their main guys have had to play?
The injuries are without question taking their toll, specifically not having OG Anunoby. You look at the Knicks three-point defense. The Knicks three-point defense in the 2 games without Anunoby was just brutal. It felt like Indiana was able to have whatever shot they wanted Game 3 and especially in Game 4. And I know the minutes policing is going to be after Tom Thibodeau. And I understand it. Look, the Knicks have played a lot of guys, extended stretches. But look at this roster. Julius Randle is not there. Bogdanovich is not there. Mitchell Robinson is not there. Now you take OG Anunoby, and he's not in the fold. It is the playoffs. You want to win games, and I think the schedule kind of shaking out the way that it did. The Knicks giving this all-out effort in Game 3. DiVincenzo and his big effort. Alec Burks and his big effort. Being unable to hold that 9-point fourth quarter lead. They looked like a team that was spent and that was out of gas. And to be honest, gang, I thought the effort we saw on Sunday, I thought we were going to get that on Friday. Not necessarily a 40-point game, but I thought it was going to be a margin victory for the Pacers in Game 3. Well, I was wrong. It ended up being in Game 4. But look, Tom Thibodeau has no choice. They don't have a deep team. These guys got to play a lot of minutes. But the injury aspect of all of this, I think, is taking the biggest toll on the Knicks at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to look at another factor that has impacted this series in the way that OG Anunoby and his absence has, right? You look at overall the Knicks 26-5 with Anunoby in the lineup, 13-7 without him in the lineup. And Tom Thibodeau said on Sunday, Anunoby hadn't started running yet as he's rehabbing from this hamstring injury. He's just doing pull work. I mean, that tells you all you need to know about his status for Game 5. He's not playing in Game 5. There are 2 days between Game 5 and Game 6, so maybe it's a remote possibility that they get him back for Game 6. But, you know, if I'm betting on this thing, I'm betting that he's not going to be back this series because of the tricky nature of that hamstring injury. And obviously that could sink the Knicks. We'll see how it plays out over the next couple of days. And that Brunson foot issue, I mean, he's not going to tell you about how much it's impacting him, but everybody who's watching these games can tell you that it's not the same player. And that foot injury, you know, it's affecting his lift. It's affecting his ability to get by guys off the dribble. And I think it's more significant even than, you know, it has been kind of talked about by coaches and by the listings that the Knicks are doing before these games, where he was questionable before Game 3, not on the list before Game 4. You know, I think it's really bothering him. And then you look at also his hand and his wrist. You see how heavily it's taped. I think those are lingering injuries there too. So he's banged up. He's not going to talk about it, but it's certainly impacting what you've seen the last couple of games from Jalen Brunson, and the numbers are there too. One thing we haven't really talked about is the rebounding, and that was an area where I think coming into this series, it was logical to expect the Knicks to have a sizable edge, and that hasn't been the case. And part of that is, I think, Isaiah Hartenstein maybe not positioned as he usually is to get rebounds, maybe just not having a lot of gas in the tank, whatever it may be. But yesterday after the game, Hartenstein was taking his jersey off. He was using one hand to take his jersey off because the other hand, the shoulder, was bothering him a lot. And he said that the x-rays on the shoulder were negative, but he also talked about feeling numbness in his hand after he took that hard fall on his shoulder in the first half of Game 4. So again, not using his other hand to take off his jersey and just looking pretty uncomfortable. He said he'll be fine for Game 5, but when you hear nerve issue, obviously that sounds the alarms a little bit. So the Hartenstein injury could be yet another one that the Knicks are going to be dealing with, added to the list of Jalen Brunson's foot and then the guys who will not be playing. It's just the list goes on here. And if Hartenstein is compromised, I mean, you would think that Miles Turner can continue to have a big impact on this series.